So Phil Spencer of Microsoft, or Xbox, has reiterated his plans to support Nintendo consoles and Nintendo Switch 2 with, of course, Xbox titles coming over there. We've had a few titles like Minecraft, obviously, and Ori and the Blind Forest, things like that. Obviously Banjo-Kazooie, technically owned by Microsoft, and that's also been on the Switch consoles and whatnot as well. So Nintendo Switch 2, though, his plans are to support the Switch 2 and continue to support it. And of course, if you don't know, we have Forza Horizon 5, which is making its way over to PlayStation 5 now. So we got some big titles that potentially could come to the Switch 2. By the way, guys, if you enjoy this kind of content, leave a like, subscribe for more. It really helps the channel. We'll do a variety of Nintendo-based content, from news, guides, walkthroughs, you name it. We've been covering a lot of the Switch 2. If you missed any of that coverage, check it out, because there is a lot to talk about. Also made a recent video on everything you need to know about Mario Kart World, or like basically everything that we do know. And there's a lot more that you may not realize that, you know, that wasn't necessarily blatantly mentioned in the direct and different things like that. For example, the fact that there's 50 characters that we can name, and there's a lot. And so anyways, it's a massive video. It took me many hours to make, and I hope you guys enjoy that one. So let's go ahead over to Nintendo Life, which is quoting Variety, but there's, I don't know, I just like to open up a couple different articles. We'll check out Variety as well, but throw it up on screen. You can see Nintendo Life's report right here. One of the things that they mention, again, is what I just mentioned right here. You know, Minecraft, Ori and the Blind Forest, Banjo-Kazooie's been on, of course, Nintendo Switch. Also Xbox recently dipped its toes further into the world of multi-platform releases by launching Pentiment and Grounded on the Nintendo Switch, reports Nintendo Life. But right here in this section here, this is where one of the quotes comes from. And I noticed that Nintendo Life's only quoting one, so we're going to go to Variety after and check out the other quote also. But the first question from Variety was, Switch 2 is set to be released soon. As you've begun to branch out with games available on PlayStation and Nintendo consoles, do you have plans for specific projects on Switch 2? This is what Phil Spencer says. So, we've been supporting Switch 1. I want to support Switch 2. Nintendo has been a great partner. We think it's a unique way for us to reach players who are not PC players, who aren't players on Xbox. It lets us continue to grow our community of people that care about the franchises that we have, and that's really important for us to make sure that we continue to invest in our games. I'm really a big believer in what Nintendo means for the industry, and us continuing to support them, and getting the support from them for our franchises, I think, is an important part of our future, end quote. So that's the first quote, but what Nintendo Life notes is that there's a recent rumor that suggests that Halo, the Master Chief Collection, would be making its way to the Nintendo Switch 2, and I want to talk about that very briefly before we go check out the other quote. Yeah, so this, you know, maybe happening in the future. According to The Verge's Tom Warren, the release may not be complete, suggesting that individual titles may be launched separately. So, in terms of can the Switch 2 run Halo, the Master Chief Collection? Absolutely, 100%. If you missed our video talking about the power of the Switch 2, check that out. But I do want to say real quick is I've dabbled a little bit in some of the other handheld stuff, like, you know, the Asus ROG Ally, the ROG Ally X, and kind of, you know, spent some hours in those, you know, kind of handheld PC handhelds, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, the Halo the Master Chief Collection can run pretty good on even the base ROG Ally, which is less powerful than the ROG Ally X. And off the top of my head, I think the Switch 2 is probably ballpark or more powerful than the ROG Ally, the base ROG Ally. I don't know. I can't remember. I spent most of my time with the ROG Ally X, but I did try both. But all that to say, I 100% believe, without a shadow of a doubt, Master Chief Collection could run on the Switch 2. So, yeah, could that happen in the future? According to these leaks, maybe. We're seeing a lot of pretty big third-party titles. I mean, Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yeah, Master Chief Collection would be probably a cakewalk on the Switch 2. Let's go to Variety. They got another one. Because it, you know, talks about the Switch 2 and all that, but then they kind of ask one other thing about Nintendo. This is not really specific to Nintendo, but it's just worth mentioning. It's like, does Nintendo revealing its next-gen console make you antsy, excuse me, to announce what Xbox has coming next in that space? And I wanted to mention this because essentially what I've always said is Nintendo lives in their own space first and foremost, but Phil Spencer basically just says, I'm not going to read it all, but says, you know, no, I think all of us in the industry should focus on our communities and the player base that we're building and all that. But yeah, I mean, all that to say is again, like, Nintendo you know, they live in their own kind of like space. So, you know, when people say like, oh, you know, how does the Nintendo Switch 2 compare to like PS5 or something, or does it compare more to the PS4, or, you know, where does it compare to? It's actually a hard question to answer. And again, this is something that I really kind of picked apart in that video, you know, talking about the Switch 2 power and how it compares, like how powerful is the Switch 2 really. You know, again, it's a topic that I think it's hard to say just from what we see on paper, because the Switch 2 is there's more going behind the scenes, behind the curtains, if you will, than just what we see on paper. First of all, that's giving like some extra magic and power to the Switch 2. Not like obviously artificial power, well, in a sense, right? Because there's like different kind of technologies you can have, right? They have the AI upscaling, and they have, you know, obviously DLSS, which is not necessarily power, but it helps with performance and different things like that. And so anyways, a lot of technologies going on, and it's probably some that we don't even realize, you know, what is actually going on here. So yeah, all that to say, I mean, you know, I think no matter what, you know, people, for the most part, it's usually like Nintendo is usually like, it just lives on its own. People, it's like PS5 or PlayStation or Xbox. Those are like the two head-to-head, and then like Nintendo is like its own thing. It's like its own, I don't know, I don't even know what to call it, but yeah. So I personally don't see like, you know, Switch. I've never seen Nintendo having to compete with, you know, PlayStation and Xbox. I think the only thing that's important, which we're seeing, is that we're getting third-party support on the you know, Nintendo consoles, right? That's something that I think is a big deal, and especially for people who can only afford one, you know, that makes it a little bit easier, maybe, you know, because if people don't really care about just like straight up raw power, they just want to be able to play certain games. Like if you want to play Elden Ring, but you don't really care about the, you know, the highest quality, the highest power, you know, with that kind of game, but you're like, oh, it's on the Switch 2, I want to be able to play Nintendo games and these third-party games. So I mean, if I can only afford one console, it just makes sense. So in a sense, like, Nintendo is not really a competitor, because like I said, they sit in their own kind of bubble, but at the same time, having that third-party support also, I think, gives Nintendo a little bit of an edge for people who can only choose one and want to play Nintendo games, but also want to play these other games and don't really care about having, you know, the highest possible power. You know, so yeah, I don't know. That's the topic for now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I thought it was interesting to kind of, you know, dive into. Could we see other franchises, Gears of War, for example? I think Gears of War, I mean, obviously, you know, the trilogy, that's another game that, you know, they're older games. These are 360 games that were like, obviously, you know, given a little bit of a bump up in resolution, performance and stuff. So, but they do look nice. They have held down, and those bump ups look really good. And with Halo, the Master Chief Collection, of course, Halo 2, there's some stuff like the campaign and stuff that's just completely remastered. So there is that also. But what about some of the, you know, the more powerful, you know, stuff like Forza Horizon 5, you know, like I said, that just is coming to PS5 now. Could that come to the Switch? I think maybe. The only thing is, there's another topic we just talked about, is about the Switch 2 not having analog triggers. And so a game with Forza is a little bit weird, because Forza does have that kind of analog capabilities where you can push the gas pedal a little bit, gives it a little bit of gas. So that would be a little bit weird, I guess. Maybe, I don't know how they would handle that. But in terms of like the power, yeah, it'd be a dumbed down version. But again, this is something that's like I've experienced on the, you know, the Asus ROG Ally, the ROG Ally X, different things like that. And I think the Switch 2 could pull off like kind of a, you know, a lower resolution version, you know, maybe like low to medium settings or something. Again, I'm just kind of spitballing. I haven't really thought that through, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, that's that. So what Xbox game would you guys like to see come to the Switch 2? That's what I'm going to leave this video at. Let me know in the comments, what Xbox game would you like to see on the Switch 2? If you enjoyed this one, leave a like, subscribe for more. I hope to see you guys soon in another one. Tell your friends. Game on. Catch you guys later.